Hello, welcome to the video. Today we are discussing the Spanish Grand Prix, and if you are new here, this is Racing Right Now, and I am Lex. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button if you please, and turn on all notifications so you never miss I upload. This race was chaos, and you won't know why unless you keep watching, so you better keep watching. Either way, once again, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button if you please, and turn on all notifications so you never miss I upload. Okay, roll the intro. Actually, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna move some things and then I'll come back to y'all. Okay, I think we're good. Let's do the ceremonious Red Bull opening. She was crisp today. I also keep accidentally shaking my desk and that shakes y'all and that's not great. But on to business. Like I said, we are in Barcelona, Spain. This is a circuit, like a track circuit. I don't know why I said it like that. It is 4.665 kilometers long, and total distance after 66 laps in the Grand Prix, it's 307.104. There are 16 turns. It is a clockwise circuit, and it was established in 1991, and the lap record is held by Kimi Räikkönen in 2008 with a 121.670. Yeah, this is a funky looking one. It looks like the emoji that's like, and so I think it's kind of funny, but I also just realized I never turned voice isolation back on. Okay. We have two Spanish drivers on the grid. We have Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. Carlos Sainz joined in 2015, I want to say, and Fernando Alonso joined in like 1999 or something like that. With Fernando, he was in F1 till like 2017. He retired for like 3 years, then came back, and now he's just back. And yeah, Fernando is something. This circuit is where Max Verstappen had his first win ever, I think in 2016. Yeah, that's kind of like when the tide started turning with him and Daniel Ricciardo. And also, there have been a lot of rumors. If you're like truly a new F1 fan, you probably are like, who is Daniel Ricciardo? Which actually gags me. But Danny Rick is an 8-time Grand Prix winner. He's one of my favorite drivers of all time. He drove for Red Bull, McLaren, Renault, BMW. Then maybe it. But he's everything. Like, I genuinely, oh. But Cadillac is joining F1 next year, and there were a lot of rumors that he was going to like sign a contract with them and come back, and he said, no, dog, I'm done. Because what happened was he initially got dropped by McLaren for Oscar Piastri at the end of 2023, at the end of 2022. And so then Oscar Piastri Oscar Piastri starts his F1 career in 2023, and Red Bull takes Daniel back as a reserve driver. And Danny Rick was the reserve driver for like 9 Grand Prix, and then replaced Nick DeVries in the, at the time, AlphaTauri, now Racing Bull seat. And then he was there for the rest of 2023, and then he was dropped at Singapore last year, and it made me sob. Like, genuinely, Crofty's speech about him as well. Ooh. Sob. I could cry right now thinking about it. But that's the Danny Rick story, and not even sure how we got there. Either way, in free practice 1, Roy Hirakawa was in for Esteban Ocon, and he went onto the gravel in turn 10. Isaac Hadjar was rage baiting Lewis, and what I mean by that was he would not get out of the way for Lewis. Victor Martins is in for Williams. Hulkenberg and Leclerc are the first to go on softs, and Lewis is and they said the stat, Lewis has only outqualified Charles once in the past 8 Grand Prix. Free practice 2, Ollie spins and goes into the gravel at turn 3, and then Stroll was crashing out. Per usual. Not literally crashing out, but yeah. Free practice 3, Lando goes into the gravel. He kind of just He went into turn 9 too quickly, and he kind of lost his edge and went into the runoff, but he was fine. Everything's fine. And then McLaren talks about porpoising, or the car like bouncing, which is not good. It was like a big problem for Aston Martin at the beginning, or not Aston Martin, a big problem for, may have even been McLaren at the beginning of 2023. Obviously, the car's changed a lot since then. But I remember that because in my first ever F1 video, I had to look up what porpoising meant because I was like, what the fuck is that? Also, in my first ever F1 video, I call Fernando, I think I call him like Ferdinand or something like that. I genuinely, it makes me cringe. I should do a video like reacting to my first ever F1 video. Ooh, it's cringy, y'all. It's bad. Either way. In qualifying, Q1, Franco says that he has a problem, and literally, it must have been engine failure or something, or it wasn't engine failure. He was stuck at the end of the pit lane, and everyone was behind him, and they couldn't go, and it was just not great. And so then people just had to go around him, and he did get out, though, eventually. And Yuki is out in Q1 for the first time in his Red Bull career so far. I have no notes for Q2, and in Q3, okay, frankly, I don't even know how do I describe this? Okay, a slipstream is basically, I don't know how it works like mechanically, but it happens when an F1 car is aligned with another F1 car and it gains extra speed. Oh, here we go. It happens this is because the F1 car in front is, oh, that makes a lot of sense. The first car is like breaking the wind and punching a hole in the air, so the F1 car behind them can reduce the air resistance. That's actually makes a lot more sense. Not sure why that never clicked in my head. Either way, Lando was trying to, in Q3 of this Grand Prix, or this qualifying, Lando was trying to get a slipstream from Oscar, and Oscar goes, cheeky, 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 cheeky. And that's literally all my notes for Q3. Mr. Oscar Piastri was on pole with Lando Norris in second, and Max third, I want to say. But yeah, in the Grand Prix, Lance Stroll withdraws from the Grand Prix because of wrist surgery. Lance Stroll broke both of his wrists at the beginning of the 2023 season in a biking accident. I remember when I read that news, I like audibly said, like, how the fuck, like, you like knew that like you were gonna have testing in like a week, and yet you still like were like, let's go mountain biking in like either way. He broke both his wrists. He did make it to Bahrain, but but I think his wrists are still messed up clearly, and so he withdrew from the Grand Prix, and he's having wrist surgery. Yuki has a pit lane start because they adjusted his engine. Okay, now once the Grand Prix actually started, Max is able to get in front of Lando. Fernando was hunting. Like, genuinely, when I, like, that's my favorite term in F1 because it's like, you can tell when a driver is like, you wouldn't, like, it's like the Jaws soundtrack. It's like, dun dun dun. It's like genuinely terrifying. But that's what Fernando was doing at the beginning of the race. Alex had to change his front wing. I'm not exactly sure what happened. Ferraris are told to swap positions. Fernando goes into the gravel. Max pits after Lando overtakes him. Liam pushes Alex. Then they have contact, but technically Liam didn't push Alex because Liam was a tire's length ahead, so it was legal technically. But then Liam has contact with Ollie Berman, and they were like fighting in front of Lando. And this was at the end of or not end, but like second half of the Grand Prix. And Lando was coming out of the pit, and these two, Liam and Ollie, were fighting in front of him, making him vulnerable to Max, who was behind him. But the problem with circuits that are, like, I would say if they're under like 5 kilometers, typically there is gonna be some like backrunners. Like, you're gonna have to do some, what's the word for it? It's not overtaking, but just like passing like the backrunners. And so, yeah, it was not good. And then Kimi Antonelli goes off into the gravel, yellow flag. In turn 10, he goes fully off, and that turned into a full safety car. I think he just had engine failure, and it was very sad for him. Either way, due to this safety car, if you pit under a safety car, it's like a tenth, or not a tenth, it's like half the amount of time it would be if you were pitting in a normal Grand Prix. And so Oscar pits, then Lando pits, then Max pits, and slow stops from McLaren, but fast enough to stay in front of Max. Thank God. Then they put Max on hards. There were like probably 20 ish laps left. Hold on, pause. There is something bugging my eye. Okay, sorry, there was a hair in my eye. Um, they put Max on hards, and there were probably like 15 to 20 laps left in the Grand Prix. And so obviously the hards, especially on this circuit, took a little while to warm up. And so Max, after coming off of the safety start, everyone's going to want to try and figure their shit out, basically. And so he doesn't have any grip because his fucking tires are cold and they don't have any grip because they're, yeah. And so they're pulling in, or they're like, Oscar goes. The safety car is pulled out and Oscar goes, 200 kilometers per hour, 150-ish kilometers or miles per hour. And he's going, and Max has this like snap, and he basically, like, his car like literally goes in front of the Ferrari, which lets Charles Leclerc to be able to get in front of him. And so Charles is able to get in front of Max, and then Max, in the order at this time, it was Oscar, Lando, Charles, Max, George Russell. Okay. And so he loses, like, he had his little snap, and then he and Charles have like a little bump, which is not super severe contact. And then Max is told to let George through, George Russell. And Max, in fact, says, fuck you and fuck your orders. And he basically Max, like I said, Max is in front, and Max is going into turn 3, I think, at this time. He's going to turn 3, and he basically, like, he makes it look like he's gonna let George through, and then doesn't, and rams George, kind of. When you look at it without any context, it does look like George ran into Max, but either way, that got him a 10-second penalty, which ended him in 10th, I believe. And I'll put the final results of the Grand Prix on the screen now. But, like, genuinely, I'll never understand the Max. I'll never understand the Max Verstappen hate, because, frankly, I think that in this situation, especially because nobody got hurt, I'm like, you know what? Have your fun. I think sometimes F1's a bit strict, and I think that that is good for a lot of reasons, but sometimes I'm just like, let them fuck around. Should Max have done that? No. But he was just trying to keep it interesting. He was just keeping George on his toes, making sure that he's really paying attention. I don't know. I don't really blame Max. I think that, like, no, I do blame Max, but I think he's kind of an icon for it, which many people are going to disagree with me on. But I also kind of and kind of am always a Max defender. Like, he's my, like, Pookie. Like, I'm like, he can do no wrong. Like, I'm sorry he cussed you out and rammed you during the Grand Prix, but he's just a little Pookie. Like, you can't just, what am I saying, y'all? Well, whenever Max does shit like this, I think of the picture of him and Michael Schumacher. I'll put it in. Look at the baby Max and his, like, bright blonde. Just, ugh. I don't know. I think Max is just so sick of F1. Like, he had this iconic moment during media day, maybe this Grand Prix or the Grand Prix before. But this interviewer was kind of like mansplaining F1 to him, and he goes, I've been in F1 for 10 years. I know how this works. 8. 8 down. I love him. But yes, I don't understand the Max hate. Like, I think a lot of people who don't like Max are just the kind of people who, I don't know, they're very much in the lines. And I don't think that life is black or white. I Like, one of the things I live by is to just exist in the shades of gray. I don't know. I'm forever and always a Max defender, so. But yeah, I feel like this is a really short video. Like, I think I've only been filming for like 10 minutes. Let me come back to y'all and see if I have like anything else to talk about. Okay, I think we're good. Let's hope. We're gonna talk penalty points because Max is 1 penalty point away from getting a race ban. Okay, penalty points are pretty self-explanatory. So it comes from the FIA is a French creation, and so they emulate it on the way that the French license works, and so that even comes with a super license or like a racing license. And so with the French license, it's like speeding is like 3 points and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think you can get up to like 10 before you have like a suspension of your license. But in F1, for example, like a 10-second penalty is 3 penalty points, and then like a 5-second penalty is 1. But Max has accumulated 11 over this season, or within the within the past 12 months. And so due to that, if he gets another penalty, he's going to get a race ban, which obviously is not good. But also, once you have gotten a race ban, I believe it's like the threshold of like penalty points that you can get goes down. I'm not sure if that's correct. That is just something I read, but I mean, I don't really know. I think Max is also just kind of the driver who really could not give less of a fuck about what happens at this point. He just wants to win, and he's not there to make friends, and he has made friends, but shit happens, I guess. I don't know. I think that people just don't understand how hard Max is serving. They just don't get it. Like, they're... I don't know. George did this interview after the race, and he's shit-talking Max, warranted, but genuinely, I'll put it in now.
Can you just talk us through that from your perspective?
I mean, my perspective was I just got crashed into. I don't really know why or what the thinking was behind it. That's how Max goes racing.
Can you talk us through the restart from your perspective? What happened with George?
Yeah, I had a big moment there in the last corner. Unfortunately, the hard tires had a very low grip, so yeah, that was quite painful. Because of those hard tires, you get into those situations.
George has given his take on the incident. What's your take on that, and also the 10-second
I don't need to
penalty?
say anything about it.
He was in P4, I was in P5, I ended up P4, he ended up P10. So glad that I managed to finish the race. Not really sure what he was thinking because he cost himself and his team a lot of points. No conversation really required. He cannot deal with adversity. Whenever anything is not going his way, he lashes out with unnecessary anger and borderline violence,
You can't tell me that that's not the funniest thing you've ever heard. Also, everything that I've seen of it, it's like I saw the interview on F1's TikTok, and then I saw just edits of Max with that as the intro. So, but yeah, really, I don't know. I feel like this video is really short. It's gonna be like 16 minutes in total, and that feels really, really short. But I have nothing else to talk about. Like, that's everything that happened within the Grand Prix and everything that happened over this weekend. So, yeah. Okay, I guess we're done here. I don't know. I love you all. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that button if you please, and turn on all notifications so you know when I upload. And yeah, make good decisions and don't do bad things. And once again, I love you. And this is the last race of a triple header. Thank fucking God, because I have been going insane. And so there's a week break, and then we're in Canada, which is actually where my special friend lived for 4 years. And you'll hear about that on the next vlog. Either way, I love you all. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that button if you please, and turn on all notifications. And roll the outro.